sometimes it's not the strangers who wound us the most. It's the ones we tried to help, the ones we sat next to in the break room, the ones we believed were family, in a place we gave our soul to. And then, out of nowhere, a conversation you thought was safe becomes the fire that burns you. Suddenly, trust feels like a trap, and you're left wondering, why did I care so much for people who didn't protect me? I want to tell you a story. It might sound familiar. Maybe because it's mine. Or maybe because it's yours too. There was a time I believed that nursing wasn't just a job. It was a calling. That the team I worked with was my tribe. That we all carried each other's weight because we were on the same mission. To help people. But some days, you learn the hard way that not everyone wants peace. Some just want power, even if it means turning your words into weapons. One day, after a long shift, I did what many of us do. I vented, not in malice, not to tear anyone down, just to express frustration about changes that felt like they were crushing our spirit. New policies, tighter rules, less autonomy. I said out loud what many of us felt. This doesn't feel right. It's like we can't breathe anymore. I didn't shout it. I didn't blame anyone. I was just trying to be human in a place that was starting to feel mechanical, cold, dictated. But what I didn't know was that someone sitting beside me was recording my honesty for someone else's agenda. And the next thing I knew, I was sitting across from the boss. She looked me straight in the eye, asked if I said what I said, and I told the truth. Yes, because I believe in truth. I believe in transparency. I believed it would matter, but instead I was told, if you're not happy here, maybe you shouldn't be here at all. And just like that, my loyalty was labeled as toxicity. No investigation, no compassion. Just exile for expressing what others were too afraid to say. I walked out of that office. Not angry, not even surprised. Just heartbroken. Because I realized the real danger wasn't the new policy. It was the silence they wanted to enforce. The kind of silence that suffocates the soul of a caregiver. Here's what I've learned in the fire. Just because someone betrays your trust doesn't mean you were wrong for trusting. It means they weren't ready for the kind of truth you carry. Some people thrive in systems where honesty is punished, where silence is safety, where gossip is currency, but not you. You are not meant to shrink to survive. You are meant to speak light, even when it's inconvenient, to challenge the darkness, even when it's decorated in scrubs and name tags. For days, I carried the sting, replaying conversations, questioning every moment. Was I too honest? Should I have stayed silent? Will I ever be able to trust again? But those questions are distractions. The real question is this: will I let this break me or build me? Because here's the truth. Every betrayal is a crossroads. You can harden your heart and build walls so high that no one gets in. Or you can heal and become wiser, not colder. I chose healing. And healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means learning how to carry the scar without letting it become your identity. If you're listening to this and nodding quietly, let me say what maybe no one has told you yet. You're not alone. You are not wrong for wanting a workplace where voices are heard. You are not weak for feeling crushed when loyalty is repaid with betrayal. You are not dramatic. You are not too sensitive. You are just someone who still believes in integrity, in honesty, in teams that uplift instead of tear down. And that's rare, but that's also powerful. Let me leave you with 3 truths I've had to relearn the hard way. Not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability. Your heart is sacred. Be kind but discerning. Not every coworker is a confidant. Speaking truth will cost you comfort, but it will buy you freedom. You might be misunderstood. You might be punished. but your soul will remain intact. Every betrayal reveals your strength, not your weakness. The fact that you still show up, still give, still love. That is resilience. This isn't the end of your story. It's just a chapter where truth got tested and your spirit got stretched. And you're going to rise from this, not just as a nurse, but as a woman of wisdom, as a warrior of light, as someone who didn't let a broken system break her soul. So, breathe deep, shake the dust off your heart, and know this: your honesty was never the problem. Your light was just too bright for their shadows. There comes a moment in every healer's life, a moment where the weight gets too heavy, the silence becomes deafening, and your own heart feels like it's breaking from the very people you tried to keep whole. You keep saying, "I didn't deserve this." And you didn't. You gave, and you gave, and you gave, until it felt like giving was the only language you knew, until you forgot how to ask for anything in return. You see, it's not always the loud betrayal that breaks us. Sometimes it's the whisper of ingratitude, the silence when you needed someone to speak up for you, the way they conveniently forgot how many times you showed up for them. They watched you break your back trying to keep everything upright. They let you sacrifice your peace so the boat wouldn't rock. And then they blamed you when the ship started to sink. Isn't that something? You bled compassion, and they accused you of being too much. You stayed late to help, and they said you were trying to show off. You questioned injustice, and they called you the problem. Let me tell you something that no one ever told you clearly. Not everyone you help will have the heart to honor your effort. Some people will weaponize your kindness. Others will take your loyalty as an invitation to use you. But here's the truth that can set you free. Their behavior is not your burden. Their betrayal is not your identity. Their lies do not erase your legacy. Because here's what happens when you live as a healer in a broken system. You become a mirror. Your presence reflects what others aren't willing to face in themselves. You're honest, and they call you difficult. You're compassionate, and they say you're weak. You speak up, and they say you're divisive. But the truth is, you're just someone with a heart too big for this world. Someone who wanted better. For everyone. Someone who believed that love could lead and still hold people accountable. And when the people around you couldn't handle that, they turned on you, not because you were wrong, but because your presence reminded them of everything they were too afraid to be. It's not your fault. It's not your shame to carry. It's not your job to shrink so others can stay comfortable in their dysfunction. There's a moment, after the tears stop falling and the silence settles in, where you look in the mirror and say, something has to change, and maybe that something is me. Not in a way that blames yourself for their betrayal. Not in a way that says you were wrong to care, but in a way that finally says, I cannot keep giving my light to people committed to staying in the dark. This is your turning point. The shift from wounded to wiser, from broken to becoming. Because healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means learning what it taught you. And here's what you might learn, slowly and painfully, but with clarity. You can be kind and still have boundaries. Love doesn't mean access. Compassion doesn't mean chaos. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your heart. Some people are just meant to pass through. Let them. Venting isn't the problem. Unsafe people are. And environments where you're punished for having an opinion? That's not a workplace. That's a warning sign. You see, you were trying to heal others while bleeding out yourself. And now you get to stop. You get to reclaim your peace, your purpose, your voice. You get to rebuild, not out of bitterness, but from clarity, not to prove them wrong, but to finally be right with yourself. Let's pause here for a moment and breathe. Because if no one's told you this lately, you were never wrong for speaking up. You were never wrong for caring too deeply. You were never wrong for trusting, even if they broke it. You were just unprotected in a world that doesn't always understand empathy. But now you protect yourself. You show up, still kind, still true, but wiser. You no longer pour endlessly into people who've shown you they'll only take. And that, my friend, is not losing your light. That's learning how to shine it without burning out. There comes a time in every healer's journey when the most radical act of love you can give is the word no. No, I won't stay late again because someone else didn't show up. No, I won't let guilt manipulate me into silence. No, I won't keep betraying myself in the name of being a team player. Because boundaries, they aren't walls. They're bridges, back to yourself. You see, when you've been hurt by the people you tried to help, you start to realize something powerful. You were never supposed to be their savior. You were supposed to be you, and you deserve rest. You deserve to speak without fear. You deserve peace that doesn't depend on who's in the room. So you start rebuilding, quietly, firmly. You start saying, I'm not available for gossip. I need space to process. That doesn't work for me. No, thank you. Full stop. No justification. Because the moment you stop over-explaining, the moment you stop shrinking to be digestible, is the moment you begin to heal. Let's be honest. At first, setting boundaries feels like guilt. You'll wonder if you're being too cold, too distant. You'll hear echoes in your mind. You've changed. You're not the same. Why are you acting like this? But what they don't see is that you had to change, because staying the same meant staying hurt, and you're not doing that anymore. You are not the fixer. You are not the sponge for everyone's chaos. You are not the emotional landfill for other people's mess. You are the sacred gatekeeper of your own peace. Let's be even more real. Healing takes more courage than helping ever did. Because helping is familiar. It's what you were taught to do. It's what made you feel valuable. But healing? That's the bold decision to stop bleeding in the dark and step into the light, even if you're limping. So if you're still wondering, was I wrong to draw that line? Here's your answer. No. You were brave. You were wise. You were protecting the only home you'll ever truly have, your soul. And the more you honor that, the more you begin to rise. There is a moment after the storm, after the silence, after the anger, after the grief, when something surprising begins to bloom. Not bitterness, not revenge, not the desire to prove your worth to those who couldn't see it, but freedom. Not the loud kind that needs to be posted and praised, but the quiet kind, the sacred kind, the kind that makes you walk a little taller, not because you're above anyone, but because you're finally with yourself. You start smiling for no reason. You start breathing without holding your chest tight. You start hearing your own voice louder than theirs, and you realize something profound. Healing didn't make you hard. It made you honest. You're not colder. You're clearer. You're not mean. You're mindful. You're not selfish. You're self-honoring. You stop pouring from an empty cup. You stop accepting crumbs and calling it teamwork. You stop shrinking yourself just to stay in the room. Because now, you choose who gets access to you. Not out of vengeance. Not out of fear. But because you finally remembered. You're sacred. Your energy is sacred. Your gifts are sacred. Your presence is a privilege. not a free-for-all. Let this be your reminder to every nurse, caregiver, teacher, and quiet soul who's ever whispered to themselves, "Why does it hurt so much to help?" It hurts when you forget yourself in the process. It hurts when you give more love than you ever receive. It hurts when you're expected to endure everything in silence because you're the strong one. But the strongest thing you'll ever do is heal anyway. Not so you can go back and fix them. Not so you can earn their respect. Not so you can prove anything. But so you can live again. Fully, boldly, unapologetically. You rise now. Not to fight, but to flow. You rise not to convince, but to create. You rise not to serve a system that breaks you, but to serve the version of you that finally feels whole. You may still be in the process. You may still have scars. You may still hear echoes of that moment when you were betrayed. But hear this. You are not broken. You are becoming. And becoming is messy, painful, and powerful. So today, walk with this truth. You are not what happened to you. You are not their version of the story. You are not the whispers or the shame. You are light. You are legacy. You are the one who loved through the wounds and still chose to rise. Let them say what they want. Let them misunderstand. Let them twist the story. You're not here for their approval. You're here for your peace, your purpose, your path. And that path? It's calling you home. Welcome back to yourself.